looking at technology architectures, how can we characterize what they're made of and how they get assembled and organized in an organization to deliver omnichannel experiences? Aaron, could you get us started?
Sure, thanks, Krish. Hello, everybody. Yeah, start me off with the big, vast question and see where I go, right? I think that an omnichannel technology architecture really has to address the two key elements of intelligent content, which is structure and meaning, right? So what you need to be able to capture and expose and preview, and we'll have lots to say about that, in an enterprise omnichannel technology stack is what is your content composed of, right? You have to be able to deconstruct that in a malleable and extensible fashion so that you have an ease within the technology stack of being able to enumerate content elements and organize them in terms of content types and their relationships, and also to be able to readily provide meaning to each of those elements and types, whether that's through an interaction with tagging systems, or whether that's embedded semantics having to do with the relations of the objects to one another. I guess in some ways, and I'll throw this out, certainly in terms of the modern technology stack, insofar as it exists now, it really is a move from content organization by traditional CMS, where you have a content object and you're working on it or copies of it, to a headless CMS type world where content, or a bigger TLDR, it's predicated on content models now rather than on the presentation layer. And that's a fundamental change that I'm sure we'll get into. But that's my kickoff.
Great. So we're talking about headless as a theme, and Coraline Crack is part of the panel as well. Coraline, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
My name is Coraline Crack, and I work for Crossface. And Crossface helps companies with qualified digital experts like content managers, web editors, and conversation designers to make their digital content even better. At this time, I help ABN AMRO Bank, the Dutch bank, as a lead conversation designer for their chatbot Anna. And we are just in the middle of an omnichannel technology architecture. So from a point of view of conversation designers, I like to join the discussion. Thank you.
Interesting. Yeah, conversation design is a beautiful exponent of intelligent content systems, because it's real-time reactions, contextual interactions with micro content units, right? With chatbot
exactly.
interactions.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's the highest level of maturity. We've always thought of in chat, in dialogue interactions as the highest level of maturity for content systems, because it's a sub 40 millisecond contextual
yes,
representation.
Well, at this point is the highest. I'm sure there will be in the future more higher and higher, but for the moment it is. Yeah, true.
Yep. In-game avatars speaking personalized content to individual users in 3 dimensions. Yeah, we'll get there. And Michael, would love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on the big picture about content architecture for omnichannel, touching on what Aaron was talking about in terms of some of the ingredients of content as a service or headless oriented environments.
Right. And I think, I absolutely couldn't agree more with that sort of notion that it all builds on that notion of intelligent content and having the structure and the metadata, or sort of awareness of what that structure entails. I think we've got an extra set of challenges just because we're not working within a single CMS environment. We've got sort of one primary one, I guess, from our own limited perspective. But when you look at sort of the content that we need to connect across the company, there's very conservatively 6 different CMS environments. And when I say CMS, some of them are like markdown publishing chains, data publishing chains, so not necessarily all sort of web CMSs, although there is a mix of that as well, Drupal, AEM. A key part of the solution for us, and I'm coming at this from an information architecture perspective, where my main job is connecting content across experiences and across the site as a whole. So a lot of the sort of cross-channel things that I'm doing are actually connections and sort of saying, I've got this asset or I've got this page and I need to be able to surface the relevant sort of drivers to it in email or on a website or through a chat experience. And so what we're working towards is a centralized sort of query server who can sort of handle a request for, I need a case study that matches this criteria, or I need, are there any upcoming events that match this criteria? And then select the appropriate sort of bits associated with that event or case study, whatever, and place them in the appropriate place in the current contextual challenge. And that context might, includes channel, but can also include the current user. So it's a combination of automation, personalization, sort of at scale. So you're not sort of having to constantly sort of tweak personalization pools. They're automatically populated as new content enters the system and is tagged and then goes into the database. Sort of working across all these different CMSs, again, to sort of consolidate that ability to connect and reuse without duplication, right? All of these are driving to sort of common assets with a single home or common pages with a single URL. So we're not messing with the user's ability to bookmark or for Google's ability to index, but we're connecting content in a predictable, scalable, automatable, personalizable way. So that central server is the big thing. And it's got the reusable sort of structured fragments that we're sourcing from the distributed objects. And then it's got metadata on it. And the most important metadata is subject metadata. What is it actually about? There's other metadata that matters as well, like the purpose of it, the sort of the mix of intent, like is it primarily navigational or informational? But subject, is it about a topic like blockchain or supply chain? Or is it about a product that we sell, like Sterling order management? Understanding that difference of interest allows us to connect to different kinds of assets for different purposes. So in aid of getting that metadata onto stuff, another key technology component for us is a cognitive tagging service based on Watson that can assist with manual tagging by sort of natural language understanding of the text of a page or the transcript of a video, as well as automating tagging for content that we don't have access to the metadata for, or it's legacy content, no one's going to go in and update it. And then let's see, there was one final thought I had. Oh, right. There's an ontology system that actually manages the relationship between values as distinct from the metadata. And finally, an analytics dashboard so that we can actually sort of measure performance and adjust how we're tagging and how we're understanding sort of users' reaction to and use of the relationships that we're creating based on the metadata.
And Michael, can you talk a little bit about the centralization of the 6 different CMS sources? Because I think this is really key within content supply chains, getting to that single query abstraction that we can really understand the almost semantic inquiry of the entire content set across a distributed organization, but you also have 6, it sounds like, multiple systems maintaining that content in its original form, whether through acquisition and potentially portions of its management lifecycle. So then that ends up in some sort of super loaded pool that gets queried. Does that sound about right?
It does. Yep.
Okay.
And yep. So yeah, I was just gonna say I think there's levels, and the easiest one is like, just if I need to be able to create a simple preview of the content and it's a web page, then the first sort of recognition is that, if I'm driving to a web page, really that information should already be there as metadata on the page. I shouldn't have to connect to a source system. There should be an OG tag on there that gives me, a lead space, sort of an image, thumbnail, a title, and a description. we can get more advanced and start saying, if we actually have access to the source, we might want to choose variants of that sort of preview set based on calling context. Like if the content is relevant to 3 topics and we're calling from one of them, let's make sure the preview focuses on building that connection to the one topic or to a particular audience. We're looking at using that same technique for localization of previews. So if you need to connect to English language content, but you want to give people a sense of whether it's worth following the click, so you translate the preview, but not the full asset all the time. Let's see. Once you get into the source system, you can also be uncovering more detailed elements of it. Like there may be testimonials that you want to use as part of the driver, or a significant business stat, or pull quote, or other sort of attractor to the to the driver that we want to source from the actual source object. So when that source object is structured, we can say these are the elements of that source structure that we want to be able to pull into the fragment database and use as potential drivers or individual elements. If there are circumstances where we can give sort of where that content can make sense, but most of the time we're using it sort of in a situation where you see the testimonial, there's a link that can take you to the context for that testimonial. So we're always sort of reinforcing the credibility of everything that we're sourcing through the database.
That's beautiful. And what the theme that I'm hearing throughout everything you're talking about is you're building this component-based fragment database that has a relationship, inheritance relationship to source objects, is that there is another set of relationships with the semantic context of every object in that space, of every fragment. There needs to be tags annotated to the content. You talked about OG, but there might be other kinds of semantic annotations being appended to the content, and it's probably lives in its life cycle. The semantic annotations probably start getting accrued to the objects pretty early in life cycle. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely.
Can we get the definition of OG?
Oh, sure. Open Graph, it's the metadata standard that allows for, I forget which social media networks it is. I think it's Facebook. Sorry, Aaron, what was it?
Yeah, Facebook primarily, though it often then recurses other social media networks use it. So if you have Open Graph on a page, Twitter will use it if you don't have Twitter card markup, for example, or LinkedIn will use it to produce a preview, but it's born out of Facebook. Yeah.
To listen in on the full Roundtable conversation and others, plus get access to more exclusive insight about omnichannel customer experiences, join the content order for free at simpleA.com.